Hello, this hangout is live, and this is the post-show hangout for Inspiring Doubt, episode I think 17. The topic is Ebola and the anti-vaccination movement. If you do sign in, I'm going to ask you, since we don't have all the sort of NCG After Effects, if you can use the hangout toolbox and at least put up a first name for yourself in the banner, so that when you talk, other people can know who you are. That would be beneficial. Otherwise, we just ended a show about Ebola and the anti-vaccination movement. Ended basically by saying, get your shit together and vaccinate. And stop being. It's completely contradictory to be terrified of Ebola and not terrified of the things that you're vaccinating or you're refusing to vaccinate your own children against. So, on that note, thanks for joining. Did anybody have anything they wanted to say right away? Jason, you said you had some questions.
Yeah, I've got a list of questions, actually. But if anyone else has got anything before I just jump in and start rattling these things off, I can wait a good time.
No, I can wait, man.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
Okay. So talking about and mainly the anti-vax and the whole autism thing, what do you understand about brain encephalitis and shit like that they bring up a lot? Because studies that I have read said that some of these shots or some of the ingredients in the shots do injure the brain in some senses, it causing encephalitis and other things. So is there possible correlation or not, and where would that between encephalitis and autism?
Well, there's, I guess, a fair amount of nuance to answering that question. The autism autism association with the encephalitis is already a spurious association. There's similar, I guess, symptoms to having survived a severe bout of encephalitis and having autism in some cases, but there's only some overlap. There's also autism often comes with some other comorbidities, febrile fevers and other things that can be associated. So there's not a clear link between encephalitis and autism in the first place, but there are parents of autistic children or children who were actually determined to be, and there's actually a special court, the NCVIA, the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, passed in the, I think, 1986. It's a no-fault system for litigating vaccine injury claims, basically saying that vaccines are unavoidably dangerous. What that means is not that they are in fact dangerous, like, playing tag with a tiger, but that there are risks associated with vaccines that are not possible to entirely avoid. So the question about this comes then, the sort of a risk-benefit analysis. It's always where you have to look at this with medicine, because frankly every drug has a side effect. There's people who are deathly allergic to acetaminophen, and taking some for your headache could put you in anaphylactic shock. So in those cases, those people probably shouldn't do that. There are people who can't receive vaccines for a variety of reasons, some of them being allergies to things that are contained within the vaccines, or having had extreme reactions to them in the past. And the problem with, I guess the later problem when we get beyond just the spurious link between encephalitis and autism, and then we talk about the vaccines having risks, is also then identifying what risks are related to vaccines. Encephalitis is one of them that is believed to be associated with vaccines. However, the rate at which this occurs is so low that it's difficult to establish even a statistical significance between the rate at which it naturally occurs from other causes in the environment. Encephalitis is not a common thing, even among the vaccinated or the unvaccinated, and it could very well be nothing more than a coincidence that people who recently had been vaccinated, because we took a fair amount of vaccines as children, and recent is a rather broad scope. This can happen within days, weeks, or months, and still have people claim that it was caused by the vaccine. So if you figure for the first year of life you're getting a vaccine at 2 months, at 4 months, at 6 months, and at 12 months, well, then there's not a whole lot of windows there in which you didn't recently get a vaccine. And if you happen to get encephalitis during any of those times, it's going to be, according to this National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, because it is a no-fault system, it will be associated with the vaccine, and you will be awarded a not so much a settlement, but a I'm coming up with or having trouble coming up with the word here now.
Compensation.
Compensation. Thank you. Yes, it's the there's the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. That's the name of the program associated with it. So, yes, you will be compensated for it, even if you are not under any obligation to prove an association. The association is assumed in much the same way any person who was in Vietnam during certain years, or any veteran that was in Vietnam during certain years who develops heart disease or any variety of things that are known to have all sorts of other causes, can still be compensated based on Veterans Affairs or sort of the Veterans Affairs Department because of exposure to Agent Orange. And there's no way for us to be able to rule out that that isn't related as a cause, and that's the same way that the vaccinations work. Now, I guess what I'm going to say is, again, for the sake of argument, if we just grant that encephalitis is caused by the vaccines, I guess I'm not too uncomfortable with making that assumption, because even then it's incredibly rare, and then we still have to go from encephalitis to autism. I think that there's a complete disconnect when people say that vaccines are causing autism, and not ever. I mean, how many people, without really looking into this, even ever sees anything about them causing encephalitis or other symptoms, other negative reactions? It's all associated with autism these days, and that's the one that doesn't even have like an established link that the U.S. will support. So,
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, to a point. Along that same lines, and if my mic is too loud, let me know.
Sounds good to me so far.
Okay. Along those same lines, and this is where I personally my beliefs, because autism is such a broad spectrum. I mean, you can just have a tinge of it, and you're in that category. And a lot of these have diagnosed for, however, so it's been in our genes for a long, long time. The hereditary aspects of autism versus the measles aspects or the vaccination aspects. Are there number correlations between the two? Because my personal opinion on it is we just haven't tracked or been able to track until, recently decoding the genes and everything, how much of that spectrum is in each of us. And as we reproduce and keep on going, of course those numbers are going to keep on going up, and it's what, 1 out of every 100 now, or
188, I think, is the most recent numbers.
Okay, so along those lines, are we just missing something there, or can there be some kind of correlation between the two?
Well, I think there's a couple of assumptions that have to occur before we really make that leap. One, we have to occur that it is genetic and not just an epigenetic or biological cause that is there. I'm not entirely uncomfortable making that, but we haven't established a direct link. So it would have to be heritable into some degree or another. But also that it's well, I guess not, and also this is more of a even if that is the case, I'm inclined to believe that autism, or the autism spectrum, as particularly things like Asperger's and the higher functioning autism, are just a normal part of the variability, the diversity, neurodiversity of humanity. The same way that we get people that are adept at music, or they tend to be very rapid kinesthetic learners that are talented at sports. For whatever. I mean, I am of the school that I think many of the things that are identified as autism are part of the natural variation within humanity. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's, and nor that there's no, I guess, and I guess to avoid the naturalistic fallacy, just because something is part of the natural variety doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or that we shouldn't do anything about it either. I mean, schizophrenia is certainly something that is part of the natural neurodiversity in humanity as well. That doesn't make it a good thing. So, I guess when I look at that question, I see the aspect of, yes, it's possible that this is heritable, and that it's just amplified, that it's epigenetic, but also the numbers that I think you touched on this as well, identification and classification. It was, I think, the late 90s, the newest, it might have even been the early 2000s, when the newest DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, came out, and this is being updated and things. But the changes in DSM-4 and DSM-5 have really expanded the definition of autism in such a way that now it has become this spectrum, a broad categorical term that applies to a much larger range of behaviors and characteristics. So, yeah, anytime you do something like that, you can expect a fair amount more being diagnosed. It's in many ways, psychology especially is sort of a game of giving things a name, and then finding out what kind of things we can use that name for. Right. It doesn't necessarily give sort of a causal link as much as just a label.
Okay. Please, someone else ask some questions too. I don't want to just go through everything. Come on, Alex.
Oh, I know all this material already. I don't have questions.
Dr. Alex.
Oh, Alex did join. Okay, I've been looking at other sources and things to make sure I'm up to date. So sorry, I haven't been following this chat.
Are you looking at that picture frame of me that I sent you?
Yeah, don't tell people about that.
It's no secret. I give one to everyone.
Where's mine?
Mail.
Okay.
No
questions?
I also, since we hit the topic, I guess, of the vaccine court, there's also, you may have heard of it's VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, and the NVICP, the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. This is where there's problems with how this works, and some of it does come from sort of bureaucracy and the assumption of liability that comes with it. The government mandating or strongly recommending vaccinations. I personally am in favor of mandating them. This is a public health issue, and as it has been very well established, that public health issues don't work very well if they're voluntary. Things like quarantines work really well, no matter how much they piss people off. So vaccines are just as accurate. So. I mean, we mandate that people put their children in car seats when they go in a car. I don't understand why we wouldn't mandate that they protect their children from illnesses that statistically are probably far more likely to kill them if nobody were to vaccinate. Since we do have such herd immunity, they're still pretty relatively safe. But it's because everybody else is taking care of your kid for you.
Yeah.
What's the?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, what's the education like in the US with it when it comes to vaccines and such, especially in like high school and college and whatnot? Because I'd say that if you were to force vaccines to be mandatory, as they should be, wouldn't that get such a backlash with well, obviously increasing minority fighting against that? So wouldn't they try and push for legislation to make them non-mandatory? Or is that a way to get around that?
There's, I guess that seem like a couple of questions. The education part, that in our elementary schools and high schools, they don't. Elementary school, I remember getting vaccines at school. I don't know about the other people in here, but going to the nurse's office and getting the MMR booster, I think was what they did there. But that was I don't know if they still do that, to be honest, but I remember that happening to me. That doesn't mean even that it necessarily did, though, as we've discussed a bit in the past. Memories can be fabricated or faulty. But I think it did, and therefore I'm going to make that claim absolutely. It did. And other than that, I mean, they didn't really talk about what they were for or why, including up like through high school. They mentioned it a bit, but they sort of give you a cursory, this is what a vaccine does, is trains your immune system to be able to respond to this. But I don't know how much more really is necessary to teach people about, because I mean, when I studied biology in college, of course, we studied how the immune system works and the relation of the thyroid and sort of your spleen and the white blood cells and your different antibodies that are associated, but none of that matters. So, at least to the general public, like if you're not studying it and being this isn't going to be a significant portion of what you do, not only is it not going to be helpful for you to know any of these things, it's going to be annoying for somebody to try to teach them to you. I think for the most part, what you need to know is that vaccines are helpful, that there are risks associated with vaccines, but the risks associated with not vaccinating are orders of magnitude greater, so you would be stupid to not do it. That's, I think, and I had this argument. I went to bring my daughter in for her 2-month checkup, and the nurse said to me, like she's doing the regular checkup, she goes, and are you going to be giving her vaccines today, or getting her vaccines? And I said, what the hell was that? Are you kidding me? This is how you approach people with this? You are a medical professional. You should be telling people, so this is her 2-month checkup, so at this, she's scheduled to get these vaccines. What these vaccines do is protect her from illnesses that can kill her. So we're going to give them to her unless you're a terrible parent.
Holy
I wish it was that easy to explain it like that.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. You work in healthcare, don't you? That's how you should be doing this when the situation. I don't know if they arise for you specifically, but yeah, but, there's a lot of politics. Frankly, and this has happened. I know it has happened because there's been a fair amount of articles and things about it. But if I was a doctor practicing family practice, and I had somebody say, I'm not going to vaccinate my children, I'd say, well, great, then I'm not going to be your doctor. That's just not how this is going to work. So, yeah, that's Alex is pointing out here in the chat that, yes, it's a nurse. I don't, and most nurses in the U.S. at least now have a bachelor's degree.
Greg, that's a completely different conversation. You picked up like a part from another conversation.
Oh,
now I look like a dick.
Oh.
Thanks, Greg.
I see it now. I totally, like, I saw this as a nurse with all caps there, and I thought that this was referring to me, but apparently it was referring to something completely off topic.
Well, no,
Well
it
done,
wasn't completely off topic. It was a friend of mine posted the other day that she overheard in the hallway one person saying, "I don't believe in vaccination," and then the other girl saying, "But you're a nurse." And the first person responds, "Well, vaccines are where AIDS comes from. They put monkey livers in them and all of Europe got AIDS."
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I fear for the future of our species.
Yo, that's a big face palm. Jesus Christ.
They put monkey livers in them, and all of Europe got AIDS.
I bet all of Europe is now gay too.
Do you think that there's something innate with vaccines? The fact that it's a needle, the fact that it's some kind of government mandated or government push towards type of thing that people are drawn off by it. People don't really make a fuss about penicillin and having to be prescribed penicillin or antibiotics for any other thing. It's a
Matter of
liquid.
fact, people make a fuss the opposite direction. People make a fuss when they have to be prescribed antibiotics and that they can't just go to the store and pick it up because they decided that they need their antibiotics.
Honestly, 6 hours in waiting in the waiting room for an ear infection that I have almost every year for a $6 bottle of antibiotics. It's unbelievable.
Mm.
Just pick it up off the shelf. I know the dosage. The tattoo on my leg. But yeah, was there a piece of, because we tend to do this. We'll take a story of something that didn't happen and just like Ben Franklin and the kite thing. We'll take a story and think it's true. For years and years and years, did somewhere in 1921 come a propaganda poster that said vaccines are the government putting cameras in your eyeballs or whatever? Or are they controlling you, mind controlling device? Was there a thing? Was there a piece of propaganda? Was there a film? Is it RoboCop 2?
Some of these things don't necessarily have to have a direct propaganda source so much as just like an internet forum where a bunch of people that are prone to conspiracy theorizing gather together and are always trying to out-theorize one another.
Yeah, and then every once in a while a conspiracy theory from these forums goes out like Monsanto's poisonous, crops going into other people's farms and growing there.
Frankly, they're sort of infectious little memes, right? They play on people's natural fears. People have natural fears of sort of the government being oppressive or subversive. The fact that the government keeps secrets, that there's top secret documents, that we have a CIA and an FBI, that there's things that happen that we're not allowed to know about. That makes people suspicious. They also get suspicious, or they're resistant to just being told what to do. I mean, my 3-year-old has already a long-running history of hating being told what to do. And I think that never really goes away. It's something that starts right about the same time we learn how to walk. And we hate being told
Never
we're
went away
actually
from
supposed
me.
to do that. Me either.
I think you raised a very good point with mentioning the internet and conspiracy forums, because I think this kind of anti-vaccine movement would not have spread as quickly and as rapidly as like we've seen now without the internet. Like it would. I don't think it would be a problem.
Yeah, I think that you're certainly right that the internet has made misinformation travel a whole lot faster. Also, some celebrities jumping on the bandwagon certainly helped. There's nothing like putting celebrities, no matter how D-list that celebrity may be. I got famous because I was a Playboy model, and now
I'm a Scientologist.
Right. I don't know, but I mean that can't be the only case because we also have more recently emerging things that come from things like books. That a single book written by Mary Baker Eddy is the source of the Christian Science movement or movement, church organization. I don't know what to call it, but this belief that sort of all illness is an illusion, and that through prayer you can bring it. This sort of, I mean, this the self-help movement of the '70s had a lot of the same aspects to it. The advent of television, the printing press, every bit of new technology helps distribute these things quicker. But of course, it's it also distribute. We travel further. And just the human intermingling. I think that the anthropology shows this has been going on for a really long time, though, regardless of how exactly the word traveled, and how far and how quickly. We can see that people have been coming up with really crazy ideas for basically all of human history. So it's just a matter of now we can do it faster and spread it around, and we can shit all over the internet. So.
On the flip side, it's also a great aid for this such conversation, or actually trying to spread the facts about things too. But when it comes to freedom of speech, should there be a limit on that? I mean, some of these things are obviously blatant lies and misleadings.
That's a difficult topic, right? Because if you have the question of freedom of speech, there's always been restrictions on free speech. People like to say, well, it's a free country, I can say what I want. Well, I mean, the classic example is always, no, you can't say fire in a crowded theater because you can cause hysteria and panic, and it becomes dangerous. So this is the same justification for why the guy was kicked off the flight for saying Ebola. Thank you for the timing there. I mean, there's justification behind it. If you're doing something that will cause mass hysteria, what you're doing is stupid and dangerous, and it's irresponsible, and there's I guess some social interest in stopping it. But then we're getting into sort of the ethical, legal questions of the breach of the government and proper role. I'm not sure that that's necessarily where this conversation is going to be most productive if we veer off in that direction.
Well, to clarify, sorry there.
Oh, I guess I was just going to close on that one by saying that I think that the more direct answer to it is what you mentioned is conversations like this, and more the courage of every individual, because having shows like this and pages and things like mine, and there's so many others that are out there are great if somebody's willing to go to them. But it's really hard to get somebody to listen to Greg Bray or some other random that they've never heard of, or even somebody that they have heard of, like Sam Harris, but they heard he's a racist asshole. So, there's easy things to pass the buck and things, but it's not necessarily as easy for them to dismiss the words of their son or their best friend or their nephew or something of that. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to use our relationships with these people, to risk the relationships even, because they will, in many cases, damage the relationships, and it's a sad reality, but it's worth it. If you see somebody spreading this garbage, to speak up and to say something about it, even if you're bad at it, even if you don't know a whole lot, just say, this doesn't seem right to me. It's amazing how that one sentence can do an incredible amount of just stopping the yes men and getting somebody else to step forth and say, yeah, you know what, something feels weird about it to me too. It sounds fishy, I'm going to look this up more. Somebody who might have a friend who knows a bit more about it will then bring them in, and you can help trigger a debate. But by any means, feel free to tag me. I like to argue. So.
Does anyone else have any other questions? I can get back to the list.
Well, I was just going to clarify on something that the person wasn't kicked off the planet for saying Ebola. he actually claimed he had it. So then healthcare workers and whatnot actually suited up and went on the plane and took him off it. So it wasn't that he's just said Ebola, it was that he actually claimed to have it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
He sneezed. Yeah. He sneezed and said, "Oh, I have Ebola." I could even hear how he said it, you know. And their sarcasm meter wasn't working that day. I think it was the barometric pressure at that altitude.
And all the blood in the sneeze.
Some people. They just do my head in.
Hey,
the kid with measles next to him was freaked out.
Oh shit! Yeah, in that video I linked in the chat, this bloke was saying how it was the whole Ebola thing was a hoax, and it's like the New World Order and shit. And yeah, if you guys want to see some really stupid shit, just watch that.
The video is titled "Ebola Hoax, New World Order Psyop Exposed, Worldwide Alert." Oh dear.
Exactly. You just cringe. You're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
It's never one thing. This person is a New World Order thing, so it'll be Ebola, it'll be contaminating the water, it'll be cutting off the food supply, I think was one of them.
GMOs are involved too, somehow.
GMOs, of course, and aliens as well. There's always aliens in government. That's a hand-in-hand conversation.
The
You can always
reptilians.
pinpoint that person. Because it's never, I just believe that the aliens are something, 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 Roswell, and blah, blah, blah. It's about the government conspiracy and this and this and this. I don't really have they're not my friends, is what I'm trying to say. But I know a bunch of people who, follow this of just bad reasoning.
Yeah,
It's good. I mean, I was going to call it sort of a spiral, but it seems better to describe it as a toilet bowl of reasoning. You just get flushed away with a whole bunch of shit. So it's. I don't like conspiracy reasoning, and you're absolutely right. It always comes in clusters. You never have one person who's like, I just believe in Area 51, like that. I think that aliens visited us there, and that's it. Like, I don't think that they do the crop circles. I don't think the government's hiding things other than, maybe they had some artifacts there or whatever, but not, like, no men in black, no black helicopters, none of this. That never happens. You get some people.
I'll come across people who believe in like one thing, like say the 9/11 conspiracy theory or certain other things. But usually, what I tend to find are people who, if they buy into a few of them, they'll buy pretty much anything.
Kevin, I'm going to say, do you know what the difference is between the people that believe in one thing and the people that believe in a lot?
Mm-hmm.
About 2 years. Just give them time. They're going to keep getting more and more of these. If you don't, nip it in the butt. I think
they're right at the rim of the toilet bowl. Worst.
Right, exactly. Everything's got to plop somewhere, right? So, all right.
Yeah, and it's not just the 9/11 conspiracy. It's then after it'll go into government. It'll go into the government is doing this.
The 9/11 conspiracy tends to go a lot with chemtrails and fluoride. I think those are the three that go together a lot.
Who are the lizard people? Not who are they? I mean, we all know who they are, obviously. But which group do they fall into? I think they're the anti-establishment group.
I don't remember exactly. The guy who talks about it is mentioned in the article I was discussing earlier.
Alex Jones, probably.
Well, Alex Jones is not the one who sort of really popularized it, though.
Really? Wow.
That's
fun. That was.
Wait, what are you talking about again?
reptilians.
Oh.
I've seen, like, this is a rabbit hole, where I found like a video saying like proof Michelle Obama is a man. So I watched like 7 of these. I watched like 7 of these videos. Then I went into the reptilians, or like, Google Hangout, where they definitely turn into like, look at the reptile eyes super slowly, and it's like pixelated and it kind of moves for a second.
If anyone here, I just want to say, if anyone here comes across any people doing Google Hangouts, like conspiracy theorists. I want, like, send me a link to this stream.
Yeah,
I
I'm
really
in
want to
too.
see
Please.
that.
I'm in.
No, just to watch, not even to join. I don't want to join. I just
Yeah.
want to watch.
I'm gonna
David
troll them.
That's the person.
Cancel my Netflix
ICKE.
subscription.
I was in one with a flat earther.
Yeah.
Wow, that was my first encounter with one. It's like
Is that Ryan guy?
yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
the
was
one
his name.
Maudy had him on his show not too long ago. Oh God, I couldn't watch. I felt like I was getting infected.
You're like, oh no, what? For me, I was like, oh my god, I'm actually talking to one. Holy shit, these people
They
actually
do
exist. They're but like it's like you always see them on videos, on YouTube videos or on blogs or whatever. I think, that's just bullshit. You actually see one on camera talking to you. And I said to him, what's the most definite proof that the world was flat? And then he says, just look at the United Nations flag, and then you see it like, portrayed as being flat to encompass the whole world. And I said, really? The flag's symbol? And you're thinking, what the fuck?
This is the most definitive proof you have is the symbol that somebody put on a flag.
That's what he had.
This is a drawing.
Yep.
It's like you may as well have just handed me a napkin and said it's right here.
Exactly. And we're just like, what the fuck? What's wrong with this guy? And then you'd say, okay, well, if the world's flat, that therefore implies that there's an edge to the world. Point out the edge of the world. And he says, no, I can't. I'm like, oh, what? Oh, some
The
people.
fact that you can't see the edge of the world is a government conspiracy, but it's there.
Right. It's there. What happens is if you get close enough, the men in the black helicopters, they erase your memory. They implant false memories of some vacation to an exotic land, and then they plant you back on an airplane and send your ass back home.
Well, the one I've commonly heard regarding the flat Earth thing is that it's Antarctica is like they put the North Pole at the center and the world's a disk, and Antarctica is like this huge ice wall that surrounds the entire.
Really?
Even though the math totally doesn't work out, but that's the one I've heard. It's pretty weird.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
There goes.
Right.
There goes.
There goes a ball game.
No, I was trying to find the word. Nautical.
Yeah.
Driving the boat.
How do you explain like the basic shit, like seasons?
I give up.
Like, latitude having to do with
Well, the way they explain gravity, I've heard some of them explain gravity, is that the disk that the world is on is accelerating upwards at 9.81 meters per second, and that's where we get.
Up in where?
Wow.
Up in what?
It's just the turtles are climbing onto other turtles' backs. At that rate, approximately.
Wow.
Did you? Do we want to get back to the topic at hand here, David? Do you have any? Or Dave? Wow, I don't know what David just said. Jason, do you have any other? Just because I was looking at.
David Icke is not in this hangout right now.
Ike, is it Ike or Ick? I feel like I should call it Ick.
It's David Icke.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Greg, you were mentioning earlier that you were kind of afraid of the Ebola virus becoming airborne, evolving to that point. We know anything in biology has different rates of mutation. Things will be steady or sturdy in their processes and very few mutations throughout its life. Some things, like the flu virus and others, can mutate easily and fast, and every year it's going to be a different virus. How stable is the Ebola virus, from what you know? And what would it take to, in a sense, make it airborne?
That's one that I just don't have the answer to. I don't know even how much research has been into that. But I do know that the rate of mutation of different things, there's a matter or an amount of stability with it, but this is where you have sort of the Dawkins versus Gould argument of, is this punctuated equilibrium, where Stephen Jay Gould would have argued that we have sort of the long-standing balance, and then something shifts, new environment, new niche is entered, whatever, that allows for this massive explosion of diversity, and this, we no longer have the stabilizing selection that's going on. I talked a bit in my last show about the different kinds of natural selection that can be with your directional, stabilizing, or disruptive, and I think that with viruses, the rate of duplication, the rate of infection are all related. Influenza evolves very rapidly because it infects lots of people very quickly, and every new infection is a new opportunity for it to change. So maybe that's associated with it, or maybe it's just I'm saying a lot today, but it could be something inherent to the structure of it is necessary, that it is sensitive to mutations, where if it were to mutate in most ways, it becomes no longer viable. So that's a possibility as well. That's generally where sort of the stabilizing selection comes from, is that, if it's genetically simple enough, then I guess the smaller the genome, the greater effect any single change has upon the entire genome by percentage.
Yeah. Now, with airborne viruses, isn't it very limited understanding of this? Wouldn't it just be that it's small to be visible in air, and that just be the definition of airborne?
I guess the being small enough to be transported in the air was your question?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. It also Ebola tends to infect epithelial tissues. So things like your the skin is one, but most significantly it affects the epithelial tissues of the blood vessels, which is why it has the hemorrhagic disorder that it is it degrades your blood vessels. They fall apart. You bleed out. You drop your I can't right now. You drop your blood pressure and you die. But you bleed everywhere. Now, as far as viruses go, Ebola is larger than some. Hey, buddy, my son came to visit. You getting ready for bed?
Yeah.
I will in just a minute, okay? So, Ebola is larger than some, but viruses are very, very small. It's not a bacteriophage, which bacteriophages are incredibly small because they infect bacterial cells, not animal cells. And that's I guess
I don't want to do.
You can watch, but can you grab a chair? All right. So they
Yeah.
it's still entirely possible for though. I don't think that at the size of any virus known to man, gravity is a significant concern. It could become airborne. It's more a matter of which cells it infects and the viability outside of it and the methods by which. So, like, influenza tends to infect your respiratory system primarily, and therefore it's just there in the air that you breathe, and it can be easily sort of picked up or expelled in the air, and enough of it, a significant enough portion of it, is expelled in the air that it stays around for a while and it dissipates. It's a high enough concentration even at distances. There's droplet transmission is another one. That's where if you get sneezed or coughed on, or talked around sort of daddy duck style. We've all been spit on by somebody while they're talking, but it doesn't need to be that large of a droplet. We all put out very small droplets. Yes, we just talked about baby Winry actually, and her getting when she had to get her shots. And so there's There's droplets that come about especially when you sneeze or cough that can linger in the air for a while that are not visible. They're still detectable if you were to sort of gather them with a slide. And then there's true airborne, which is like it just sort of it never settles. It'll sort of stay in the air until it dies. So I don't know how much the size of it has to do with it. It has probably a lot more to do with what part of the body it infects.
Hey, fella.
Stay here. Say hi.
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 This is my son. Getting ready for bed. Want to show me your cool pajamas? Oh, got his Ninja Turtles pajamas. They're awesome.
Yay. Yay for
Very
me.
awesome pajamas.
How long can the virus last outside of the body?
You know, I pulled a link up on that, and it looks rather inconclusive. But I don't know if I saved that one, but I have to look for a source here, quick, buddy. The data on it showed anywhere from I think up to 50 days under refrigeration in the right conditions it can survive outside of a body to just a few minutes in a different study to in sort of hot, dry conditions. So I don't really know.
Refrigerated?
What was that?
Did you say 2 days refrigerated?
I said 50.
Oh,
50
50.
days.
Wow, that's completely different. Okay.
Yeah.
You
2
said
months.
we didn't. You mentioned that we didn't know what it's unknown what its natural reservoir is outside of the human body.
Right, they talk about that in the Hot Zone book a bit. Hey, this thing here, Casey, I'm trying to do a show. I'll answer your questions here in a little bit, okay? Can you go say hi to Mama? Tell her Daddy's almost done with the show, okay? Let her know. All right, so in the Hot Zone book, they talk a bit about the. Let me see if I can find that link now. So, the origins of the Ebola virus and the sort of thoughts about it. They don't really know, but there's some guesses. One of them is Mount Elgin. The book opens with the shadow of Mount Elgin, which is it's Kitum Cave on Mount Elgin in Kenya. There was a story of a guy that is given a pseudonym, Charles Monet, in that book, but it's based on a real person who goes into great detail the progression of the disease. He's thought to be patient zero, the first human that is known to have contracted this. Or a virus like this. I don't think they were able to verify even that he had actually Ebola at this time. What's
that?
Wait, Nancy Jackson stuff.
What's that?
Or maybe there is her real name. It was actually a woman, Nancy Jackson. I'm not totally sure. I haven't looked too much into that. But this cave, this Kitum Cave in Mount Elgin in Kenya, is believed to be the original source of the virus, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. There's lots of different animals that live in this cave, and the author of the book, who's an actual expert on Ebola, this is again, it's nonfiction, not somebody who's just sort of writing sort of Michael Crichton style. Though he's a fan of Crichton's and finished his last book for him. He went to the cave wearing a full hazmat suit and everything at this point, but to try to just get that experience, so he knew what he was talking about. Yes, that camera needs to stay there, though, buddy.
Why?
Because it's already kind of broken. I guess to answer the question, we know that viruses often have a reservoir, is what they call it, an animal that it can live in as a carrier without killing them in sort of an asymptomatic manner, in much the same way that the Reston virus could infect humans and not, and then I dropped it on the floor, and not cause them any sort of adverse reactions. It's okay, Casey, it's under my foot. and that would be the same sort of thing you'd expect to see in these animals. That would be a reservoir. I know that some of them, like we talk about swine flu and bird flu, comes from things like that. SARS is known to be related to birds. A lot of things are related to birds because they're filthy animals. Reptiles and birds in general, they're not nearly as susceptible to bacterial diseases as we are either. Bastards. Yeah, they don't have a urinary bladder at all. They have a cloaca where everything comes out one hole. It all mixes and it comes out whenever it wants to. They poop where they eat. It's gross. Birds are filthy.
And then it gets all over your car, and then you have to clean it off. And...
I'll help you.
Yeah, my wife once got pooped on in our car while we were moving. That was impressive. It was great, too, because it was like we were turning left, and she's sitting on the right side of the car. And suddenly, my brother's driving, I'm in the passenger seat, and she's in the back seat. She suddenly just like, oh God! And I look back, and she's just covered in bird crap. They apparently we just got like dive bombed by a flock. I don't know. We got out of the car. I took off my shirt, gave it to her. She, used my shirt as a towel. Yeah, we got out of the car when we got home and looked, and just there was like a 4 foot by 4 foot area that looked like somebody had taken like one of those T-shirt cannons at a ballpark and filled it with bird crap and just blasted it at the side of the car. It was. Yeah.
Nightmares.
That's a beautiful mental image.
That's awesome.
You mean the me taking my shirt off part, or the...
No, we're
the long and short of it, natural reservoirs are things that they tend to be animals that are rather ubiquitous around people. Things like pigs because we have farms, birds, rats, other things that are just kind of there around us a lot, even if we don't necessarily see them. We get in touch with their droppings or other things, and then we get sick because of them. There's also, I'd imagine, though, for the Ebola virus, given how rare it actually is, whatever animal is its reservoir is not a particularly common one.
Do you know anything about how far they've gotten in testing or studying the antibodies from the... I think they were just recently talking about the one doctor that survived so far, and they were talking about using the antibodies that his body created to fight the virus.
Ask on the side of time.
From what I can tell, I think he survived by blood transfusion, I think you call it.
Oh, he had a transfusion first?
Yeah, I think he had a transfusion, and that got rid of it almost completely, I'm pretty sure.
That's one that it was not a very well-controlled study. They did the transfusions. There's a documentary that sort of talks about this with a big Ebola outbreak where they're sort of towards the tail end of it, it was killing 90% of the people it was infecting, and they were basically, isolated from the rest of the world. These handful of doctors, a couple of the other doctors on their teams got it. This is, of course, after HIV was out, and they essentially just went, well, fuck it. These people survived. Let's just give a transfusion of their blood to some of these other people and see if it helps. And it happened to work out in such a way that the people receiving the virus had a much higher, the transfusion had a much higher survival rate. That doesn't necessarily mean that that was a causal relationship. It could be that the virus had just sort of petered itself out or evolved in such a way that it was less virulent by that point in it, which is where sort of the lack of control is problematic. It also, there was some ethics associated with that because, they didn't have the equipment to test for HIV and things. I looked at that and went, well, what the hell, they're going to, die tomorrow or a while from now if you give them HIV, but I think it's a little longer. So, That's unfortunately we can say that there was some speculation on that. There's also been some tests with the restin virus, specifically had a couple of monkeys that had survived the infection with it, and then they were inoculated. What was that? Oh, monkey livers. You're right.
Alex was right. They're right.
So it says that there's a couple that there were two of them that were infected with a very large dose of the Ebola virus in an effort to produce the Ebola vaccine. One of the two monkeys remained resistant, but the second one died. Yeah, there's some that's been going on, but that'll be a ways out yet before we have any real firm answers on that. Sorry.
Okay. So for the most part, really the only kind of treatment they can do for any of it is just treat the symptoms like we do the flu or any other common cold.
Yeah, some antivirals might help. They haven't been shown to be real successful, but treating the symptoms is certainly helpful. Unfortunately, this is one where even giving blood transfusions to people who are bleeding out isn't that useful because they're bleeding from everywhere. Like their blood vessels are just rupturing all over their bodies. So you're just putting more, dumping more water into a canvas bag at that point, and it's just not going to stay. So.
All right, well, that cleared it up for my list of questions.
Do you know anything about the possible development of a vaccine for Ebola, or that process?
I know that there's not currently anything that is approved. I haven't seen much about. There's a couple new serums that have been put out that contain antibodies. Not quite the same thing as a vaccine, so much as an attempt to treat. That they've been testing with some of the more recent cases, and I think one of the people who used it, or who was given the serum, lived, and the other one died. So it's not. It certainly is not a magic bullet, but that's when it's still highly experimental, and there's not really enough evidence to back whether it's having any positive effect whatsoever.
Okay.
Or that it's not. I'm not saying that it's not helpful. I'm saying that we just don't know yet.
Yeah, that's one thing that sucks about all this. It takes so long sometimes to come up with anything.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about something that has a mortality rate like this. That's fortunately for a lot of testing with diseases, we have a bunch of broke college students that are willing to do stupid shit for money. So they'll be willing to sign up for a vaccine trial where they will be, intentionally that they'll be given this vaccine and then intentionally inoculated with the thing it's supposed to vaccinate against. That when these things are mild, it's something that it's like, well, we're going to give you something that, like this. I don't know. I can't come up with any viruses, right? Like just a basic rhinovirus or whatever. And see if this vaccine works. You might get a little sniffly for a while, or this might happen. But it's almost certainly not going to kill you or have any permanent effects, even if you do get this. And they're like, all right, cool, sign me up, $1,000, I'm in. So
yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
Can't really do
Actually.
that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding.
So, that's of course, anytime you want to do an experiment, there's ethics review boards that it needs to be put across. Even when I was doing research on frogs on the UWGB campus, I still had to put it across an ethics review board to make sure that I was going to be, euthanizing them in a humane manner, and that collecting them in numbers that were sustainable and not going to have a significant ecological effect. And, this is grant proposals and all that are difficult, and then even more comes when you get to actually doing the experiment, like at college or anything. So, Ebola is one where we kind of have to look for natural experiments and hope. We've of course had some things like the Tuskegee. Not Tuskegee. What was the syphilis experiment where the U.S. military inoculated people with it.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, it was Amala. It looks like, I don't know exactly. There's a name that's often given to it, but yeah, that one clearly violated ethical standards. But we don't do that with things like HIV and Ebola and stuff, but we do take it. Tuskegee, it was Tuskegee. Okay. I was thinking Tuskegee Airmen, so I thought I was wrong, but no. Usually my arrogance pays off. But the natural experiments that exist with things like these outbreaks offer, and it's as ridiculous as it is to say this because people look at me like a monster, they offer an excellent opportunity for us to find out if we can stop people from dying in different ways. So the fact that they stumbled upon this unlucky bit of being dying and all, that allows us the opportunity to see if we can stop that. But hopefully, the best case scenario, we never have enough experiments or natural experiments to ever actually develop a vaccine that works. I don't know. It's kind of if it remains rare enough, then great. We don't need one.
Okay. I think you need to go tuck your kid in.
Yeah, I do. I need to go say goodnight to my son. And thank you, everybody, for joining. Alex, you pile of garbage. You should have been here for the main show. When I said 7 o'clock, it was your time. How long has my show been on now? This is episode 17, and in the same time slot every time.
I used your time, you used my time. It's
Yeah.
We're all users here.
thoughtful.
I should have just said the same time it always is. Asshole. You should know that.
I didn't know you had a show.
All right. Thank you then to anybody who is watching now or is watching in the future. Again, this is a post-show hangout to the show that is carried not on my channel but on the New Covenant Group's channel. It's actually a YouTube channel, The New Covenant Group, all one word. The show is Inspiring Doubt. My name is Greg Bray. I'm the host, and you can find my Facebook page at www.inspiringdoubt.com and send me a friend request. It's just Greg Bray. As far as I'm aware, I'm the only one on the planet. So, thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your week. Don't get Ebola, but do get your flu shots. Have a great day.
Good night.
It's currently still stopping and